Hey everyone, my name is Isaac Arthur and I'm a co-founder here at Kodo Design in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I want to welcome you back to our series where we're diving into some of the topics, chapters, and theory from our new book, Craft Beer Rebranded. Head over to craftbeerrebranded.com to buy your 2-book bundle today. This is a 180-page book and a 60-page companion workbook that will together help you navigate each step of your brewery's rebranding process. Check it out. In our last video, we discussed how to build your internal team for your brewery's rebrand. Now, let's discuss how to find the perfect external design partner. Quick note here, your rebrand is one of the most important projects your brewery will ever undertake, and you're putting a lot of time and energy and money into this, and you owe it to yourself to work with an expert. With the right design firm, you'll get an objective set of outside eyes, sizing up your brewery's situation, tapping into their industry connections, and applying their knowledge of fast-moving consumer trends, all of which allows you to focus on the day-to-day work of making and selling great beer while your rebrand is in motion. Finding the perfect creative partner is daunting. There are tens of thousands, maybe more, of design firms around the country and hundreds of thousands of freelancers, and there are mega agencies, small shops, and everything in between, and each with their own approach, philosophy, and pricing structure. We spent a lot of time breaking this down in Craft Beer Rebranded, but I want to give you a quick look at what you should be looking for in a design partner and how to go about vetting them during your search. To make this easy, let's break up the common partners, or break the common partners you'll find out into 3 groups. Let's do that. So let's do freelancers, small to medium-sized firms, and then large agencies. And let's start with freelancers. So freelancers are solo practitioners, although they can operate as part of a larger collaborative or network. Some pros of working with them, they can be very talented and more affordable, way more affordable than a design firm or big agency, and they can be highly personable and passionate about your project. Some cons, it's not uncommon to find a freelancer who can only tackle part of your rebrand, so like your identity and packaging, but not, let's say, your brand strategy or website. And I draw a lot of heat with this opinion, but another con with some freelancers, not all, but some, is that because they often work in a vacuum, they can tend to have a single visual style that they apply to all of their client work, no matter the project context or goals. So this means that your fancy custom branding may look eerily similar to another local brewery they worked with, or a restaurant, or a plumbing company. It all looks kind of the same. It's up to you to decide if that's actually a con, because my opinion doesn't matter in this case. The next group to work with would be small to medium-sized design firms. These groups can range from 3 to 4 folks up to 10 to 15, and their pricing can be equally variable. So these shops will generally be able to handle the full breadth of your project, from strategy through identity, packaging, digital, and ongoing marketing, and more. Some pros, these shops tend to be smaller, more nimble, and responsive. It's easier to find an industry specialist at this size, with years of experience in the brewing niche or a related vertical, for example. And they tend to attract and retain great talent because they're larger businesses than a freelancer. Another benefit is that you can usually expect to have direct access to the owners and the creative leadership throughout the project because the team's small. Some cons here, they are more expensive than freelancers, but for a reason. And we can get in the weeds for a moment. Really small agencies are more susceptible to having the quality of their work suffer if a key employee leaves. We've seen this before, particularly if a designer handles a unique illustration style. Though this may be more of an issue after your rebranding project when you're focused on ongoing brand maintenance, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Okay, let's talk about the big boys, big agencies. Agencies are big and have lots and lots of people, lots of bodies to throw at your project, assuming you have the budget to handle it. And they will generally be able to help you with everything you need and a lot of stuff you probably don't. Some pros to large agencies here, they have plenty of staff, as I mentioned. They're usually able to meet concrete deadlines, and they can often provide broader capabilities and post-project support, like advertising, developing marketing plans, videography, a lot of stuff like that. Some cons, their fees are generally astronomical compared to smaller or even larger kind of firms. And definitely freelancers. And we're talking an order of magnitude for the same scope. And unless you're a huge nationally distributed brewery, you likely won't be their biggest client. And does that matter? This could be reflected in the work that they do for you. You never want to be a design firm's cool project or cool client. And you definitely don't want to be their smallest client either, trust me. So a few more cons. I love beating up on agencies. These places tend to have high staff turnover, and you may not have consistency in your creative team. And finally, my favorite one to rag on with large agencies is that you will almost certainly be dealing with an account manager. These slick-dressed folks, they always like to wear vests and $600 boots and shit like that. They act like a firewall between you and you, the client, the beautiful client, and the creative team who's actually working on your project, the people that are actually grinding it out and making your stuff. So every design firm will have its own ethos and process, but here at Kodo, just quickly, we believe that true collaboration is the foundation for any successful and compelling work. And this means that there's no place for that slick-dressed bastard account manager, and that your brewery team needs to be working directly with our design team throughout the entire process. We don't wear vests. There's also that. And our boots are much less solid and much cheaper than $600. So anyway, a few other things to think about here. The first is on in-house designers. So once your rebrand is launched, there can be the temptation to call it a wrap and stop thinking about it for a while. I get it. This project might take a year. You want to get it off your to-do list. But your brand will always require ongoing care and maintenance to stay consistent. I'm always amazed when a brewery will drop $100,000 on a rebrand only to let their newly developed identity fall apart over the next year as various taproom managers and sales staff and interns develop posters and social content and merch that are inconsistent at best and poorly designed generally. So if you can afford the staffing overhead, I know this is easy for me to say, but adding an in-house designer to your team, usually in addition to a marketing director if you are of that scale, it's an incredible resource for your brewery on a day-to-day basis. And having experienced design talent in-house, it can help you stay consistent, and from this process standpoint, it can help you actively maintain your investment after the project is wrapped. So, of course, you can always continue working with your branding partner as well. Kodo, we work with people generally for years after our first big branding or rebranding project, but we have found that the volume of work required to keep a brewery's brand and your release calendar these days in tip-top shape is much better suited to someone who's at the brewery day in and day out. So whichever route you take, please be mindful of how important it is to maintain the hard work that you went through during your rebrand. A few final thoughts. Let's briefly discuss the term full service, because you're likely to see that in your search for a design partner. It's bullshit. It doesn't really matter. A true full service agency can handle anything you could possibly need, from brand strategy and copywriting through design, branding, print, media buy, social media planning, campaign execution, photography, videography. We've actually found that a lot of agencies that claim this title, Kodo doesn't for sure, but a lot of agencies that claim that title aren't actually full service at all. It's just a fancy thing to put on your website, similar to you design firms out there that say you're award-winning or multidisciplinary. Again, largely bullshit. But let's say that an agency is truly full service. They do exist. This is great if you are the largest brewery conglomerate in the world, but it is unlikely, I have a hunch, that you're not going to need all of those services through your rebrand. And even more unlikely that you're going to want to pay the extra costs associated with hiring a group that can offer all of those services. So the group you hire for your rebrand should be able to, at a minimum, handle brand strategy. So including the things we've talked about through this series, right? So things like positioning, naming, messaging, all the stuff we've touched on to date. Your brand identity, packaging, including concepting, production, and TTB coordination, and web design. And out of all of these things, digital design, web design is the one that you could partner with another agency on if you had to. But if the group you're interested in can competently handle these services and show you lots of case studies to that effect, then they should be able to provide most, if not everything, you'll need through your brewery's rebrand, no matter their size. And for those of you out there thinking, okay, cool, video guy, just tell me who to work with. I think that in most cases, we have found, and this sounds biased coming from Kodo, of course, but from a smaller brewery on up to an enormous outfit with a national footprint, the small to medium-sized firm really is going to be your best bet. Full disclosure, obviously Kodo is one of these firms. We wrote this stupid book that we're here talking about. But if you look around the country, forget about Kodo for a second, if you look around the country at who is executing some of the best branding and highest profile brewery rebranding work, it's not those huge agencies with their fancy ass account managers. It's a smaller, more nimble shops. Big fan of those small shops. So again, big grain of salt, but do your homework. I bet you will come to similar conclusions. All right, that does it for today. We're going to be back shortly with a video on how to hire the right design firm. We've talked about how to identify them. Head over to craftbeerrebranded.com. One final commercial for you folks out there watching this. I want you to buy this book now at craftbeerrebranded.com, and we will be back with you guys soon. Cheers.